Hello everyone and welcome back to another vintage Star Wars review. Well, I'll be looking at pieces from on my collection and waxing lyrical over what makes them so great. Well, at least to me anyway. Now, as promised in my last video, which is where I unboxed a Vintage Droids ATL, I'm going to be looking at a figure on a Power of the Force card, and for my first one I chose Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight to begin with. This was actually my first graded figure. I bought it about 14 years ago, way back in 2006. And believe it or not, back then graded figures weren't really, they were still in their infancy. A lot of collectors didn't really see the point in having figures graded. Now, back then, generally a graded figure would sell for the exact same amount as an ungraded figure, believe it or not. Now, that is obviously something that's changed quite a lot over time, and people have understood the relevance of having a graded figure and why that authentication and the fact that you have a grade that's impartial is so important out there, especially on the second-hand market. Now, when I bought this figure, I didn't actually know too much about the difference in grades. This scored an overall, you can just take a look, an overall 80, and the breakdowns are card 85, bubble 80, and figure 85. The bubble is slightly yellowed, and overall that scores a 80Y near mint. Now, I personally really like the design of the Power of the Force cards, and I really like the inclusion of the coins that were found with them at the top here. It's a little gimmicky, sure, but as a collector, I think it just gives us something else to chase after. As once you've put together a complete set of vintage figures, you can then go about collecting all the coins. Alright, so swinging this around. You can see all 92 figures that are released on Kenner cards. Yak Face is missing as he was never released on a US card, as I believe he was being held back for a mailing promotion which never happened as the line was unfortunately cancelled back in '85. Although Yak Face could actually be found in Europe on a tri-logo card and in Canada on a French-Canadian card. Okay, so it's a little hard to see him with all the glare. So I tell you what, let's get the old hammer out, smash into this, and then we'll take a look at him better. Okay, one hammering later, and here he is. Now, of course, I didn't really open him. Even someone as mad as me, who's opened a fair bunch of vintage Star Wars in the time, wouldn't do it to this one. But anyway, here he is in all his glory. And I have to say, in my opinion, I think this is probably the best Luke Skywalker figure Kenner made in the vintage line. The sculpting is so much better compared to some of the earlier figures, particularly the early Lukes. I think it just shows the advances that they were getting. He also has quite a few accessories with 2 weapons and a cape. Now, this particular figure of mine is a bit of a Frankenstein's monster, as I put him together over a few years, with the gun and cape being the one from my childhood. The lightsaber I picked up at a toy dealership about 10 years ago, and the figure I bought loose on eBay 3 years ago. So it just pays to sort of hold on to bits and pieces, because sometimes you don't have to, buy the complete figure in one go. Now, early versions of this figure on the Return of the Jedi card actually had him packaged with a blue lightsaber. Now, the colour of his lightsaber was switched to green in the movie quite late in the movie's production. I believe it was so that it would show up easier during the Sarlacc battle scene against the blue sky. So, as of which, Kenner didn't realise until after the movie came out. Now, I actually have the blue lightsaber, or rather most of it. As you can see, unfortunately the handle has snapped off. If I just compare it to Luke's green one. Now, the blue one is again actually the one from my childhood, but unfortunately it hasn't survived intact. Now, the gun is also quite unique. If I can just focus in. It's also unique to this figure, as well as the lightsaber only being with this figure. Now, this Palace Blaster, as it's known, was also released with Lando General and Luke Endor, but both of those versions are black, where this is a dark grey. Now, I don't actually own don't actually own the coin, unfortunately, loose. But I can show you an example of one of these Power of the Force coins. This is Warwick the Ewok. Now they are silver. It looks on, because the bubble is a little bit yellow on my version, it looks like the coins are sort of gold colour, but they're not. They are silver when you take them out. And each one has a unique back, as well as a short blurb about them. Okay, so the last thing, let's put him together a bit. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is value. So if you wanted to rush out and get one in the UK, how much would that cost? Now, as ever, prices are subjective and always changing, and the condition of the figure is everything and can change the price drastically. Okay, so starting with the graded figure. Now, at this grade, as I say, it's a grade 80. Overall 80. The card 85 grade does, in my opinion, make it closer to an 85 personally. Okay, so in this condition, I reckon you're looking at around £400 to £450. Now, I will caveat that with saying that this is just my opinion, based on what I've seen figures selling for at auction. But that said, this particular figure seems to be going up a lot on value at the moment. I'm not sure why. I mean, it's a great figure, so I think it probably, you know, it deserves it. But yeah, within the last sort of 18 months, the price does seem to be escalating quite high compared to other figures. So probably now is the best time to get one before it goes too high. In case you're wondering, I actually paid £83 for this figure, the graded one, back in 2006. So that gives you some idea of how much prices have changed in those years. Loose, I think you're looking at around 45 to 50, in good condition, complete with all original accessories. Okay, so I think that just about covers it. What do you think of my valuations? Are they too high, too low? Let me know. Also, what's your favourite Luke in the vintage line? Now, I will be back with more reviews and unboxing of vintage Star Wars, so look out for some more future videos. Thanks for watching and take care.